Is there really a Judeo-Christian tradition? Many writers today take it for granted that there is. But when we look closely at history, specifically at the Jewish tradition, and the Christian tradition, our spurious familiarity with expressions like Judeo-Christian tradition, Judeo-Christian values, and Judeo-Christian ethics might be in for a shock. The Gospel called Matthew is often imagined to be the most Jewish of all Gospels. Many today see Matthew's Gospel as the starting point of the so-called Judeo-Christian tradition. But what if this understanding is wrong, based on anachronistic thinking? What if popular designations such as Judeo-Christian tradition and Judeo-Christian ethics are simply false? According to context group scholars like John Pilch and Bruce Molina, there was nothing Jewish or Christian in the first century Mediterranean world, and surely nothing that might be called a Judeo-Christian tradition. Therefore, we cannot accurately claim that the European monotheism emerging in early Christianity after New Testament times and articulated so well in medieval Christendom was part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, the reason being because such a tradition did not exist. Christianity and Judaism, contrary to widespread spurious familiarity, evolved after. Indeed, normative Judaism, hence the distinctively Jewish tradition, does not emerge until at least the late 4th century Common Era. That according to Jewish scholars like Jacob Neusner. The Jewish religion originates at the same time Mediterranean Christian elites in Constantinian and post-Constantinian times debated about the relationship of Jesus to God, the so-called Christological controversies. Both traditions, of course, Christian and Jewish, are 5th century outcomes rooted in the post-exilic Israelite world of 1st century Palestine. When it comes to words like Christian and Jewish, the same rule applies. Language only means what it means, where and when you use it. Whether it is words or sentences, whenever you move the language, you necessarily change the meaning. It isn't dictionaries and lexica that provide the meanings to words, folks. Social systems do that. Those evolve and change, and with it, so goes the meaning of language. Because words, like language itself, have their meanings from social systems, Bible translators and interpreters are essentially anachronistic when they assert that the New Testament Greek word Judaios means Jew, and that Judaismos means Judaism in the sense of Jewishness. Actually, Judaios means of or pertaining to Judea, a no longer existing reality. Judaismos means the behavior typical of and particular to those from Judea. Jewishness, and those espousing it, Jewish people or Jews, are a post-4th century phenomenon at the base of the Jewish tradition with its Talmud and rabbinical structure. The fact that people known as Jews today have their kinship religion rooted in the Babylonian Talmud should indicate to us that this form of religion dates back to the Babylonian Talmud in the 5th century Common Era. Furthermore, to develop a Judeo-Christian tradition and Judeo-Christian values and Judeo-Christian ethics, there would have to be a sustainable, positive, traditional Christian interaction with Jews, and vice versa. But any such interaction in any positive, non-hostile, constructive sense that might have formed a Judeo-Christian tradition did not happen until after the 18th century European Enlightenment. Indeed, historically, Christians have brutally persecuted Jews in genocidal hatred. Even today, among professed Christians, there are alarming indications of the hideousness of this growing.
The thing about it, me and Adidas, is like, I could literally say anti-Semitic and they can't drop me. I could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me.
Finally, the actual reference to a common Jewish-Christian tradition emerges only in late 19th century Northern Europe, when Jews began to frequent Enlightenment universities. Much development has happened since. Recently, great strides have been made in interreligious dialogue, and this great work needs to continue. But it also needs to be intellectually and historically honest.
You know, lately, in Paris, in London, in New York, people are speaking about the Judeo-Christianity. You heard about it? Civilization. Judeo-Christianity civilization. People like the term. In the first book I wrote that my aunt, didn't know when they pushed her to Auschwitz that one day Europe, the Western world, will define itself as a Judeo-Christian civilization. It's nice, no? There is not a Jewish Christian civilization. There is a Christian civilization that oppressed the Jewishness much more than all other civilizations in history. This is the truth. And this minority became a very tough minority, believing that a chosen people, it was one of the conditions, sine qua non, to stay a Jew, to know that you are a chosen people. You have to understand, Jewish ethics, in my point of view, are not the ethics that I dream of. Why? Because in Jewishness, the ethics is intergroup. You say it in English, intergroup? It's not universalist ethics, you have to understand, much less than Muslims or Christianity. Why? Not only because of the Bible, because it was a minority that suffered from strong power around it, that developed an intergroup ethics. But you don't have, in the Jewish ethics, you don't have a cosmopolitism ethics, universal ethics.
So, what can be said of the prevailing religious tradition, values, and ethics of the United States? Celebrated by so many in spurious familiarity as a Judeo-Christian nation. The fact is that, for better or worse, the prevailing religious tradition of the United States is Euro-Christian, and at its root stands the monotheism facilitated by Roman imperial monarchy, the social structure that served as analogy for this fundamental Christian religious perspective. Holy and absolute mystery called God works in the mess, folks. Therefore, the God once understood in the henotheistic Israelite tradition, with the analogy of an ethnic patron god, Yahweh, for an ethnic chosen people, is seen by Christianity to eventually be revealed in the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth, a Galilean of the house of Israel, as being the God of all humankind. According to this Christian perspective, developed long after New Testament times, now all humans are actually, or potentially, God's chosen people. And what about the gospel called Matthew? This first century Messianist Israelite document predates both Jewish tradition and Christian tradition. Apart from later Christian allegorical interpretation of it, Matthew should not be thought of as originating from either tradition, or imagined to be a starting point of a fantastical hybrid.